Hello, and welcome to another episode of MaloneBailey's official podcast, Everybody Counts. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Caroline Rosen, and I'm from the marketing department at MaloneBailey. Hopefully this isn't your first time tuning in, but if it is, welcome. We're delighted to have you. And then for those of you who aren't so familiar with our podcast, Everybody Counts features various perspectives on a variety of topics. So whether we are talking about the latest SEC and FASB updates to discussions on recruiting, retention, a variety of different practice management topics. This is a podcast that really explores trends and hot topics that affect us and those in our business. So we invite you to tune in to hear from partners and staff alike. The conversation is versatile and everybody's input counts. I am delighted to be joined today by Shelby Stevens, who oversees human resources at MaloneBailey. Today we're discussing one of the day's hottest topics, and that is working remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been a lot of talk about this, but for us at MaloneBailey, it's been a positive transition. It's been a positive experience for us. And we believe that we've got some best practices to share, which we think might be helpful to others. So on that note, welcome, Shelby.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. I'm excited to be here with you today.
We are so glad to have you on. I think this is your first time coming on the podcast.
It is, and I'm excited about it.
Well, hopefully it's fun, and it is certainly a really interesting topic. You've been central to the planning and execution of MaloneBailey's working from home, working remotely initiative during this very unusual time. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being here. And before we jump into this topic, why don't you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I've been with MaloneBailey for almost a year now, which is really exciting. It's going to be a year this summer. And I currently oversee all the aspects of human resources for the firm. Mm-hmm. And more recently, I've also taken over the recruiting functions as well. So I wear many hats with the firm, and it keeps my days exciting. Yes. I have my master's degree in human resources management from Houston Baptist University, and I received my undergrad degree from the University of Houston.
Wow. Well, you've got some great credentials there, and I know you've got a lot of great experience under your belt. This time is kind of a first for all of us, and I think we're all learning a lot. Let's just jump right into this topic that really is kind of a moving target. COVID-19 in the workplace. I mean, the changes have been drastic. They've been quick. It's really just happened in a matter of months, as we all know, because this is the topic of the day. But how did MaloneBailey prepare for the possibility of working from home, and what steps were taken to ensure that all employees would be able to function as normal while working remotely?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely say that as an accounting firm, it was a really interesting time for us because we were right in the middle of our busiest time of year. So it probably wasn't the best time. But because we have two offices in China, we'd already experienced helping them prepare. And I think that was really instrumental in our efforts to be prepared in our Houston office as well. We could kind of bring some of those best practices over. We also did some pretty extensive research. So we spoke with other organizations, and we really took some time to educate ourselves on what the other organizations were doing to prepare. And we started to monitor the situation very closely from very early on. And we continuously communicated updates and potential plans with our staff. So everyone started to prepare for the possibility of working from home pretty well in advance. And when that time came, we were really able to put our plans in place and spring into action. We really when we were coming up with our plans, we really focused on a multi-scenario plan so that if any one of these possible scenarios were to occur, we would be well prepared. And because we're a pioneer in the remote audit approach, I feel like we had a bit of an advantage because we are such a technologically savvy team, and technology has always been central to our approach. So we can work from just about anywhere, and this really made for a pretty natural transition.
Yeah, so I mean, on that note, how did the team at MaloneBailey adjust?
Well, I think the transition has been very smooth because we were so prepared and because we leveraged that technology with our auditing approach. Our team has remained extremely flexible and adaptable. And because MaloneBailey is really a pioneer in the remote audit approach, there was no adjusting in terms of the work that we do. Most of what we do is remote anyway. So it really has been a smooth transition.
That's great. That's really great. And the IT team at MaloneBailey, I mean, they certainly had to adjust as well. I mean, I would imagine they've been a pretty critical component of life at MaloneBailey and the transition. So how has the IT team had to adjust?
So
working remotely.
So our IT, like you mentioned, they really were such a critical component when we were putting together all of these multi-scenario plans because we didn't know what was going to happen. So our IT team was really prepared well in advance, and they've always been available to help and to answer questions. And so far, there hasn't been a problem that can't be fixed virtually, which is great. So I can definitely tell you that our IT team is critical in this being such a smooth transition. And they've really been instrumental in helping us acquire the licenses we need for various communication tools that we use, in addition to making sure that we have the proper storage size to accommodate any recordings that we do. So whether that be trainings or what have you, in order to ensure that they're available to everybody, we have to have the proper storage. So IT has also been instrumental in that.
Great. So you had just mentioned various tools that the firm has been using. What tools and technologies have been most necessary while working remotely?
So our computers really essentially they hold everything we need to function normally, just as we would in an office setting. So, the traditional email and phones we obviously use to communicate pretty regularly. So those will always be number one and always be necessary. But we also recently rolled out Zoom firm-wide, and that was really exciting because it's been really helpful, with trainings, with meetings, with Zoom calls. All of that stuff has been really helpful to us, and we really expect to use this for meetings and trainings for a long time to come. We also use Microsoft Teams to communicate and collaborate with all of our coworkers. And this has been a great tool because this enables you to instantly send a message, whether that be to one person or to a group of people. So when our staff is working in their teams, they can send one message that can go to their whole team in an instant. So it's instant communication with anybody that you need within the firm. And the software that we use for audit and tax was already equipped for remote work, and that's also housed on our computers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a lot of technology in place, certainly. I mean, the sound like this transition has been very smooth for the team, but I would imagine that there have been some challenges along the way. So, I mean, what can you share in terms of what some of those challenges have been and what the firm has done to overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, and I think all organizations have probably been faced with different challenges throughout what I like to call this new normal that we're in. And I've really been working hard to check in with our staff pretty regularly during this time, asking how they're doing, what they're thinking, how they're feeling. And I have to say the biggest call out and the biggest thing that they say is really that they miss going to the office and seeing their teammates. I really think that's been the biggest challenge. And I think as a firm, we're pretty lucky that that's one of our biggest challenges, because I know other organizations may be facing bigger challenges than that.
Uh-huh.
So, at MaloneBailey, we really do work in a very collaborative and team-oriented environment, and I think that's the main adjustment people are having to make.
Right.
But because of some of this technology that we just talked about, particularly Zoom and Microsoft Teams, the staff can jump on a call, they can jump on a video chat, they can send an instant message to their teams, and they can collaborate when needed.
Mm-hmm.
So that really hasn't hindered any of the collaboration that we typically foster in the office.
Mm-hmm.
I do think another challenge that we faced has been converting some of our typical in-person events, such as our trainings. We're coming up on our busy summer training period,
Right.
and our office visits, which we typically do in the spring and the fall for recruiting.
Uh-huh.
So taking these typical in-person events and transitioning them into virtual events so that they're still just as effective as they would be in person. I think that's been a challenge. Teamwork is just such a big part of our firm.
Right.
And while all of our teammates are still collaborating, like I mentioned earlier, doing this virtually, it was definitely a challenge for our newest employees who just started with us in January, and they didn't,
Right.
I'm sad they didn't get to experience more of that in-person collaboration before going remote, but I think because we foster such a culture of collaboration and teamwork, they really got to see that.
Right.
I just wish they got more of it. But we're in the process of planning some fun virtual social events in the coming weeks to really kind of keep that sense of connection and allow us to chat and catch up on video so we can see each other's faces. It's been a little while. And I think we're really looking forward to that. And I'm excited to see those events come to life.
Yeah, and I've noticed also the firm's social media platforms. I've noticed some different social media campaigns going on in which a lot of the staff have been very interactive with each other on social media, highlighting some of the things that they're doing more of now that they're at home, whether it be, cooking or going for walks, just kind of showing this other side of life. I think it's been kind of fun for people to see and interesting for people to see as well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
You really get to, this time, although I think it's been an adjustment for some people, I really also think it's been great to take the time and reflect on some of the things that are maybe more important to you. And that's actually one of the social media ideas that we had and that we've been highlighting on our social media is what has become more important to you during this time and what is maybe, is a little less important. Something that maybe you prioritized when you were commuting and going into the office maybe doesn't have so much of a big impact now.
Right.
So I think that's been really fun, and I love getting to see what the staff, what they're doing, what they're up to, what has become more important to them. You kind of get to see another side of people, which I think has been really exciting.
Very exciting and so important when it comes to connection, as you were just mentioning before. You had alluded to recruiting, which I know becomes very busy in the fall. And then, of course, MaloneBailey brings on new staff in the summer months, and then again in the fall, again in the winter. But how do you think that this whole situation, working remotely for the time being, how do you think this will affect incoming hires, the new hires of the firm?
Yeah, well, I really think that organizations and prospective employees and universities, all of that, the avenues that we use to recruit currently, all of them are accommodating the need for virtual hiring practices. So I really anticipate minimal effect to new hires other than most, meetings, possibly interviews, things like that becoming virtual.
Right.
But we're really working hard. We are prepared, and we're rolling out a plan for virtual recruiting this summer and fall. And we're really working closely with our university partners to ensure that this goes smoothly. I can say, just from the communications that I'm having with these university partners, they're really rolling out plans for summer and fall recruiting that include both virtual hiring practices as well as potentially some in-person practices. So we'll really kind of have to see what that looks like as we get a little closer, but we're staying prepared. And as far as our new hire orientation, I know you mentioned we bring staff on in the summer, in the fall, in the spring. And the first thing they do when they get to the firm is they go through an extensive new hire orientation. And that process is really going to depend on the state of the pandemic with what that process is going to look like. The first priority is to provide a safe work environment for everybody. So to ensure proper social distancing, we'll have to see what the orientation plan looks like as we get a little bit closer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing is that it sounds like the firm has done a great job of transitioning a lot of training to online trainings and recording trainings. And so I would imagine that that will be a seamless transition as well, should that have to take place. Orientation. But
yeah, utilizing that technology that we all have available to us, I think has made it a lot easier as well. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, being such a technologically savvy team, I think this is kind of second nature to our staff. And these tools really make it easy. So I think it's going to be fun and interesting to see what that looks like and how that plan comes together.
I mean, it's been interesting and challenging because I think forced organizations have to get really creative. And that's always a fun challenge, right? To come up with a new and different way of doing something.
Change is not always a bad thing.
Right.
You know, I think this is really good. And I think it's going to be really beneficial for the future.
Right. So, fortunately for MaloneBailey, overall, it seems like it's been a very smooth transition. For other organizations, it hasn't been as easy. So just to share, that in an effort to really try and help others, what would you say are some of MaloneBailey's best practices and key learnings on this topic?
Okay, well, I've got a few of them. So the first, and I think probably one of the more important ones, I would say be prepared, start early, and be proactive. You can always plan for the worst, but always hope for the best, because you just don't know. And that's why for MaloneBailey, we really thought about different scenarios that could pop up. So we really were prepared and we were really proactive. I can also say that research is pretty important, and learning from other organizations what they're doing. I can say that MaloneBailey learns so much from outside our four walls, from these other organizations that we collaborate with and we partner with. I think it's really important to get comfortable and familiar with the technology early on. We talked about IT pretty extensively on this podcast, so I think it just goes to show how important technology is and how important having that IT department be set up and ready. I think this helps to make for a seamless transition. And have that technology lined up yesterday. Don't wait until something happens to realize that you need something. You can always be prepared because you just never know.
Right. And there's a lot of great tools out there, whether it be Zoom or Microsoft Teams that, are very affordable. They're very reasonable, very fairly priced. I think Zoom even has a platform that's free of charge. It does have some limitations, but those are available to everybody, and those are some great tools.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to say personally, I had heard of Zoom and I was familiar with it, and I kind of dabbled in a little bit of Zoom, but I didn't realize how much Zoom was actually capable of until we rolled it out firm-wide. I mean, it really has made this so much easier. And that just goes to show what a little bit of research will do. So, like I said, I didn't realize that Zoom was capable of so many things.
Right.
I also think you need to, communicate, over-communicate, I would say.
Mhm.
Over-communicate to your entire team so that they know how prepared you are, because this is really, it's an important factor for morale. The
Right.
team, they need to know that you are doing your research, that you're putting your plans in place, that you are ready, because obviously safety and, the happiness of our employees is MaloneBailey's #1 priority. So
Right.
over communicate and be flexible and adaptable. I have to say, we've got some really flexible and adaptable staff on our team. So
Right.
things are going to keep changing. That's the only
Right.
constant.
Right. Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. But that's really helpful information, Shelby. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Absolutely.
I am going to switch gears now before we wrap things up.
Okay.
This is called our This or That section. And this is where we have a little bit of fun. We are going to throw two thoughts your way, two things your way, and you tell us which one you prefer. Okay? This is completely unrelated to the topic of working remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic. So,
okay, I'm ready.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee, hands down. Always been a coffee person.
All right, all right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Do you have a dog?
I do. I have a white Labrador. Her name is Zora. And she, although she is, 90 pounds of love, she still thinks she's a lap dog.
Well, I'm sure she has a very comfy situation there with you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And Shelby, last one, boots or flip-flops?
Oh, man. How does a girl pick? I don't know.
Especially a Texas girl.
I know. Man, can I go with both? It depends on the season.
Sure. Why not? It depends on the season, right? You don't want to probably be wearing your boots in the summer. Well, I guess some people do. But,
yeah, you could. I have to go with both. Actually, if I can go with all shoes, that's what I would pick.
But Shelby, as an avid Houston Livestock and Rodeo Show Committee member participant, how many pairs of boots do you have?
Right now, I have 9 pairs of boots.
Oh my gosh.
I've got my eye on a 10th pair though.
Oh my gosh. And do all those boots get worn during the rodeo?
Most of them. Most of them. Actually, I do have 10 because one pair is the pair I wear for one of my committee's calf scramble. So I don't wear my nice boots out there. So not all of them get worn because it just kind of depends on how much I'm out there, but the majority of them do.
Well, thank you for playing along, Shelby. I know that was kind of unforeseen, unplanned for, but thank you for playing along and sharing your answers with us. Shelby, thank you for coming on to our podcast. I know that this is a really busy time for you, so I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us and share this really helpful information.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yes, we're gonna definitely have you back on. We'll have to do a follow-up to this in a couple months to see where we are with everything, and obviously a lot of great recruiting and different recruiting topics that we could chat about with you too. So we'll definitely have to get that on the schedule. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today. Everybody Counts, this podcast, you can find past episodes of the podcast on our website. That's www.MaloneBailey.com. There is a resources section, which I highly encourage you to visit. Lots of great information on our website. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.